Sony's about to announce two variants to the very popular full-frame Sony A7C. One being a high-resolution camera, the other being a follow-up to the original. Is Sony about to reuse technology from the Sony A7R5? Stick around after this short break for all the details, but first, please do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, but most importantly, please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything, really helps this channel grow, and it keeps you up to date on the latest camera gear news and rumors. Okay, this isn't triple validated, but Sony Alpha Rumors says that two sources confirmed that Sony will very soon announce two cameras, the Sony A7C Mark II and the Sony A7CR. Before you go ahead and comment that I call the A7C II the A7C Mark II, just hear me out. Please forgive me. I kind of grew up in one of those, how should we say it, a Canon home where we refer to anything with a number after it, whether it be a 2, 3, or 4, as a Mark 2, 3, or 4. So I apologize. For the rest of this video, I'm going to do my best to refer to the camera as the A7C II. All right, now let's actually talk about the A7C successor. And the good news is it's going to have twins. According to Sony Alpha Rumors, this is coming from two reliable sources, and we're going to have a high-resolution version of the A7C called the A7CR. And then, of course, we're going to have an update to the previous version, and it's going to be called the A7C II. See? No Mark II. Okay, but this is where all the the sources break down. Now, we don't necessarily, from this point onwards, everything we're going to talk about, I would say, is a little bit more of conjecture. Sony Alpha Rumor says, I got no 100% confirmed specs, but a news source told me. Yeah, and here's the key thing, a news source. It's unvalidated and the information hasn't been confirmed. So I think this kind of falls into what Sony Alpha Rumors usually refers to as wild rumors, which I generally refer to as conjecture. So as we go into the rumored specifications for these two cameras, you might want to take the information here with a grain of salt. So if you're ready to scratch your head and say, what the heck, does this make any sense? Just remember that the source is unvalidated, and so is the information. The Sony A7C II has a 33 megapixel sensor, the same one from the A7 IV. And the A7CR has a 61 megapixel sensor from the A7R5. Yeah, are you buying this? So a camera that costs twice as much, the A7R5 at $38.99 with a 61 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, that same sensor is going to show up in the A7CR, 61 megapixels. Now, I want to kind of frame this for you a moment. The A7C right now sells for $1,798, the same price as the APS-C FX30. Is Sony here, are they basically taking the components and parts or specifications of a high-end camera such as the A7R5 and then bringing them down to a more affordable camera at half the price? The A7CR for around $1,798 or maybe $2,000 or even $2,100, it's still significantly cheaper than $38.99. But is this something that Sony would do? Reuse technology from an existing camera all the way through various other models, all the way down in the price, and then trademarking, borrowing Canon's cripple hammer to reduce the effectiveness of those capabilities? Well, all we have to do is go back to 2020, to August, when Sony released the A7S III, a truly amazing camera. Even today, the camera proves to be a very versatile video and stills hybrid camera. But then shortly after that, we got the FX3, which is a video-centric version of the A7S III with a slightly larger body, active cooling, and some other doodads. And then shortly after that, we got the FX30, an APS-C version of the FX30, which is a video-centric version of the A7S III. And then, of course, after that, we've got some other cameras. We got, which one was it? The ZV-E1. And it looks like Sony's really being able to, what's the term in business? Get a really good return on investment, ROI, on the original technology they put into the Sony A7S III. So they're taking that same technology and letting it percolate down. So to take the 61 megapixel backside illuminated sensor from the Sony A7R5 and bring it down to the Sony A7CR, it's not as far-fetched as you might think. However, you just have to wonder is how much are they segmenting, we won't use the term cripple, how much are they segmenting this camera? How much is it differentiating from the Sony A7R5? And I would say a good $2,000 worth. Sony Alpha Rumors goes on saying that both cameras should here implement new AI features and the usual expected improvements like improvements to menu, better autofocus system, and so forth. I have no info about the resolution of the EVF, which I hope to be the same as the Sony A7R5. Hope is a good word here because this is unvalidated, coming from unknown sources. The information hasn't been validated, neither has the source. You know what, let's just back up here and do a complete recap as to what we know. So according to Sony Alpha Rumors, which is confirmed from 2 sources, and Andre is very sure about this, is that we are definitely getting twins. We're getting 2 successors to the Sony A7C, the A7CR, which is a high-resolution version, and we're getting a follow-up, successor to the A7C and the A7c II. But that is where all these specifications break down. Once we move past that, everything else is just pure conjecture. It's wild rumors. We don't really know, and we're going to have to wait to see more from Sony Alpha Rumors, because Sony Alpha Rumors is the leading site when it comes to all things Sony. So I'm really curious to see, is Sony basically going to take the A7R5 and segment it down to the A7CR, so for half the price, much like Sony did with the FX30 versus the FX3. I'm really curious to see what this camera is going to have. So 61 megapixels, but what I'm asking of you is, what do you think Sony's going to do to the A7CR if it has a 61 megapixel full frame backside illuminated sensor? What could they do to, well, what we see in the A7R5 to cripple it down to the Sony A7CR? I'm really curious here, and Sony could have a huge hit here. Just look at the A7 IV. That camera's been selling very, very well, and they could have a huge hit here. It just really depends on the balance. It's kind of like baking. If any one of you has ever baked anything, you have a simple set of maybe just 5 ingredients, but if you get the amount of flour wrong, if you get the number of eggs wrong, if you get the sugar wrong, if you get even just those 3 items wrong in any way whatsoever, it can completely throw off the taste and the look and the feel and the texture of the cake. And it's the same with cameras. Sony can take the A7R5 and basically, well, trim it down, cut pieces off, and form it into an A7CR with still a 61 megapixel backside or 61 megapixel backside illuminated full frame sensor, but give us something that is horrible and absolutely useless, that's slow and sluggish and got a terrible rolling shutter. Or they could give us something truly impressive. All right, let's go ahead and cut this one short before I end up rambling for another 20 minutes. If you want to stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors regarding all things Sony, Canon, Panasonic, Leica, all the major camera brands, then please go ahead and subscribe and make sure you choose all notifications. It not only helps this channel grow, but it helps it get noticed. And if you want to stay up to date on all the minor news and rumors, then go ahead and follow me on my Twitter channel, which, yes, it's still Twitter. If you type in twitter.com, guess what? It goes to Twitter and it shows Twitter in the URL. However, if you type x.com, it also shows up on X. So follow me on X or Twitter, whichever one you choose. I don't think that Elon is going to go ahead and get rid of Twitter. I think that's going to endlessly point to X until calling it X is well, force of habit, as now we call iPads. But do you remember when the iPads were first announced, how everybody laughed at the name? No one's laughing anymore. We just take it for granted. It's called an iPad. Anyhow, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, one other thing too. Samsung's getting ready to make an announcement tomorrow morning at around 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't normally cover phones, but if you're interested in a phone, they're doing pre-orders tomorrow morning. So that's kind of the big news this week, at least so far. Camera announcements, we won't really start to get those until September. Well, we could start to get some in August, but I forgot to mention, one thing I forgot to mention is the Sony A7C, the Sony A7C high resolution version, as well as the A7c II. Both of those are supposed to be announced in September. Sony Alpha Rumors said 2 months, and that puts us right into the middle to the end of September, which is exactly where we start to expect to see some announcements. So September's looking very, very busy with announcements from Canon, Sony, Panasonic, Nikon, and even OM1 is rumored to be announcing some cameras. It's going to be a very, very busy time. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for calling or dialing in. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.